Okay, so drones are pretty much everywhere now, right? From delivering our packages to helping out first responders. But what if I told you they've got this hidden vulnerability, an invisible threat that could jam them, hijack them, or just shut them down in an instant? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. Just imagine this: a drone's on a super critical mission, and then, bam, it suddenly goes blind and deaf, loses all connection to its pilot, its navigation, everything. Now, this isn't some sci fi movie plot. It's a very real threat, and it all boils down to one single invisible force. So, yeah, that invisible force, that kryptonite for drones, it's called electromagnetic interference, or EMI for short. Let's break down what that actually is and why it's such a massive problem. I mean, think about it. Drones are becoming absolutely essential. They're mapping disaster zones, inspecting our infrastructure, and yeah, they're probably going to be delivering our groceries any day now. They're quickly becoming a kind of critical infrastructure all on their own. But here's the catch, right? Every single one of these drones, they rely on radio waves, the electromagnetic spectrum, to navigate, to communicate, to see the world. And that very thing they depend on, it's also their biggest weakness. So where does all this interference come from? Well, it turns out the threat isn't just one thing. It's actually coming from two totally different directions. Okay, so on one hand, you've got intentional attacks. We're talking malicious actors, people using electronic warfare tech to deliberately knock drones right out of the sky. But on the other hand, you've got something, well, a bit more subtle, just accidental interference from our own noisy, crowded, high-tech world. And believe me, both can be just as devastating. And that intentional threat, whoa, it is exploding. Get this. The Department of Homeland Security says that the smuggling of illegal signal jammers has surged by a staggering 830% since just 2021. The takeaway here is simple. The tools for these kinds of electronic attacks are getting cheaper and way, way easier for anyone to get their hands on. The simplest type of attack is something called barrage jamming. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like someone screaming through a megaphone while you're trying to have a conversation. An attacker just blasts so much electronic noise that the drone literally can't hear its operator's commands. It's totally a brute force attack, but man, is it effective. But the attacks can get way more surgical than that. This process here, it's called GNSS spoofing, and it's basically a navigation hijack. So instead of just deafening the drone, the attacker feeds it a powerful fake GPS signal. They trick the drone into thinking it's somewhere else, and then they can send it, well, wherever they want, into a wall or off to a totally different location to be captured. All right, now let's switch gears and look at those unintentional threats. Because it's not just about malicious attacks, right? Our everyday world can be pretty hostile to drones. There's research that shows just flying too close to high-voltage power lines can create electric fields so strong they can literally destabilize a drone and make it crash. And it gets even weirder than that. High-voltage lines can cause this bizarre thing called the corona plasma shielding effect. They literally ionize the air around them, creating a bubble of plasma that physically blocks GPS signals. So it's not a jammer, it's like a real-world force field that can completely blind a drone's navigation system. How wild is that? Okay, so with all these threats out there, both malicious and just accidental, how do we fight back? Well, engineers are working on a solution, building a kind of digital shield for these drones. The first layer of that shield is redundancy. The golden rule is don't rely on just one connection. Advanced drones now use multiple links all at the same time. We're talking cellular, dedicated radio, even satellite. And the system is smart enough to automatically switch to the strongest link before the current one fails. It's called make before break. And this whole concept gets even cooler when you're talking about drone swarms. They can use what's called a mesh network, where every single drone acts as a little router. So if one drone's link gets jammed, the data just finds another way, hopping through its neighbors to get where it needs to go. It's basically a self-healing system. Another key defense is to just not be a sitting duck. With something called frequency hopping, the drone's communication signal is constantly and rapidly jumping between hundreds of different frequencies every second. For a jammer, trying to block that signal is like trying to hit a bullet with another bullet. It's a moving target that's incredibly hard to pin down. So, these defenses are great for the threats we see today, but let's be real, the attackers are always getting smarter. So, what does the next generation of drone security actually look like? What's on the horizon? The future is definitely AI. Machine learning models can predict where interference is going to be the worst, and then just plot flight paths to avoid those areas. But there's a huge problem. AI needs data to learn, right? It's starving for good data. And right now, we just don't have a good standardized system for collecting information on these EMI events. So the crucial question really becomes this. We have weather maps that predict rain and wind, right? So how do we build the exact same thing for the invisible weather of the electromagnetic spectrum? A system that can tell a drone, hey, don't fly here, there's a high-pressure zone of interference right over that building. And the R&D agenda to get us there really has three key parts. First, you gotta secure the flight data itself, using tools like blockchain to create tamper-proof logs. Second, you train the AI on all that good, clean data to build that weather map of interference. And third, you create these integrated defense systems that can smartly detect and neutralize threats without causing a bunch of collateral damage. Now, I know this all might sound super technical, but this invisible battle for control of the electromagnetic spectrum, it has massive real-world consequences for every single one of us. Look, this isn't just about some hobby drone in a park. This is about national security, protecting military command and control links from adversaries. It's about public safety, making sure a fire department's drone doesn't fail in the middle of a rescue. It's about the reliability of our future supply chains, guaranteeing your packages and critical supplies get delivered. It's even about environmental policy, making sure our increasingly crowded skies don't mess with wildlife. Which leaves us with one last critical question. We are absolutely entering an era where our skies will be filled with autonomous aircraft. And in this invisible battle for the airwaves, you really have to wonder, are we building their shields faster than others can build their swords? Because the safety, the security, and the reliability of our drone-filled future, it depends entirely on that answer.